Hello, and welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show, a podcast to help you unlock tremendous growth for your app. My name is Shamant Rao. I'm the CEO of the boutique growth marketing firm Rocket Ship HQ and host of the podcast Mobile User Acquisition Show. In each episode, we feature experts in the field of mobile growth and discuss strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile growth marketing. By the end of each episode, you will have gained actionable and tactical insights that will help you make more informed decisions in your own work around growth. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is produced by Meryl Vincent, Content Marketing Manager at Rocket Ship HQ. Our guest today is Alexei Chemenda, founder and CEO at Poolday.ai, a platform that uses AI-based creators to generate videos. In today's episode, we discuss the evolution and current trends using AI-based creators for UGC ads. Alexei shares his insights from his experience, including challenges and breakthroughs in producing AI-based UGC videos, and how this is making testing and iteration of ads faster and easier. I'm excited to welcome Alexei Chemenda to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. Alexei, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you also because I think we've known each other a very long time, 10 years nearly, through different, if you will. And I'm always excited to see what your next adventure and incarnation is. And I'm happy to be speaking today because I have seen a sneak peek into what you're building, and certainly that is something you're going to talk about today, which is videos and ad creatives that feature AI-based creators. Excited to dive into all things AI and AI creators, everything in the mix today.
I'm excited as well. Thank you for the invite. And like you said, we've known each other for 10 years. I feel like we've evolved a long way, and I'm glad to be here.
With AI-based creators for a long time, and by a long time, I mean a year, which is a very long time in the age of AI. For the last year or so, since AI-based presenters came on the horizon, they've generally come across as robotic and unemotional and unreal. Yeah. And that's been changing lately. So what, in your opinion and understanding, is precipitating this change?
There's been a couple of things. The video format in the world has been scaling fast. And so people need to produce more videos. At the same time, technology has been moving fast as well. You look at companies like 11 Labs producing audio. You look at companies like Synthesia or HeyGen producing videos. Technology has been making a lot of progress. Pico Labs as well. And really the combination of the need for more videos and technology making good progress is where we see a lot of improvement happening, from purely making the videos more realistic, the humans more realistic. And that, combined with the fact that it's harder and harder to work with content creators, they're less and less reliable. And so it's kind of a perfect storm for those very realistic videos to come along, and those AI actors to be creating as many emotions as a human would. And it's an exciting journey, I would say, in the marketing side.
Yeah. And technologically, is what's changed to make this happen that wasn't possible before?
What changed technologically is obviously a lot of it. If you look at companies like HeyGen, for example, or Synthesia, they've been working at it for a good amount of time. They've only been pretty popular recently, but they've been working hard on the R&D side for a while. And really, the realization from people that AI can be leveraged in a very real way only started when OpenAI released ChatGPT. All those software companies, OpenAI is about a decade-old company, but they've been sitting in the dark producing their hard work hidden from the world. And when they unleashed ChatGPT, I think people realized, okay, there's something very real here. The manipulation of LLMs, the large language model, is something that small teams can do too. And then you get a whole number of small teams working on this and who found ways to improve it. You've had companies like Hugging Face emerge to help simplify access to to custom models, to LLMs. And I think the culmination of that is you have OpenAI, Hugging Face, you have companies, small teams working on this. And this is why now a lot more people are actually investing time and money into this. And the more time and money you invest, naturally, you get output.
Sure. And I would also imagine that as a lot of these models have more training data, the fidelity and accuracy of the output just improves and increases to being more and more realistic, right? Versus earlier on, they just wouldn't have as much training data to produce anything that was realistic or believable, right? Whereas
Yeah,
that's
100%. This is where the need for videos, the fact that videos are emerging are great because video is a very rich data set. If you look at, there are
yeah,
typically 3 layers of data set you can have. Text is the first, image is the second, and video is the third. And you can add
yeah,
voice and so on in there. But generally at a high level, those 3 layers are a different
yeah,
order of magnitudes of how much information does it carry. And if the world
sure,
had gone towards a more Twitter or X format, then the level of richness of the data is very small. If you look at video eating the world, then all of a sudden we get an immense data
yeah,
set.
yeah,
And yeah, the first videos produced by AI were crappy, but that's what
yeah,
you need to have people
sure,
who are bet on that and
sure,
lesson
sure,
learned to improve videos.
sure. But I would also point out that the atomic units of videos are harder for an LLM to build on as compared to text. Or with enough training data, an LLM could complete a sentence in text easily as compared to building a video. So I imagine that is also a layer of complexity in there that's harder to surmount for an LLM. Or is that something you would agree with, or what do you think?
Yes, but there are ways to circumvent it. Think about creating a video from scratch and you have to generate 60 frames a second for
Right.
30 seconds. Then you have a lot of frames to generate. There's a lot of compute power or server cost associated with it. Now, if you think about which parts of the video can I actually come with
Right.
versus which parts of the video do I really need to generate, and you start to isolate variables that are actually not needed from an AI perspective. And so all of a sudden you go from a very high complexity to a medium to high complexity, and you isolate the variables where you really need the 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 AI to generate. And if you look at your text, if I take your text example, yes, it's easier for an AI to generate text, the next word to be completed than the next frame. But even that, there are layers in there. How big of a text do you want the AI to generate? And how big of a context window do you want to give to the AI? And we see OpenAI playing with this context window and how much context can you give in order to
Yeah.
have the AI work. And so they started small and they're expanding. It's the same for video. You start with certain parts and then that
Right.
makes it easier to process.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And the more I dive into what happens under the hood, it makes sense, but it's still somewhat unreal and still hard to believe, which is why we live in such exciting times just now. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, and of course, it's not just a cool, sexy tool. It is yielding meaningful marketing results, right? And the reason we're talking about AI-based creators is not because they are sexy or great or fancy, but because they can drive performance. So you worked with human creators, and now you work with AI creators. How are you seeing performance differentials between the two? What do you see as being determinants of the performance differentials?
That's a great question. So yes, we indeed work with human creators and we work with AI creators. And what we notice is that we've run a few experiments at large scale, one of which is interesting. We have for context, there's 2 ways to create an AI persona or an AI content creator. The first is to take a real person and to create their digital copy, to create an AI version of themselves that looks like them and talks like them. And the other is to create a person from scratch that doesn't look like any real person out there. We've done both. And what we've measured is the experiment we've run is taking an AI actor and taking the human version of that AI actor, or the other way around, rather. You take the human actor and
Mm-hmm.
take their AI replica. And we've tested at scale to see the performance of these 2 different versions of one person. And interestingly, The performance initially, if you look at 3-6 months ago, the performance was subpar for the AI actor because the voice was still not super realistic, the movements were not realistic. And then gradually we continue improving on it, and the results have been staggering. The AI actor consistently outperforms the human. But to be clear, when we compare two videos, one human, one AI, both perform in a very similar fashion. What makes the AI actor perform better is that now all of a sudden, instead of creating one video with a human and one video with an AI actor, you get to produce one video with a human and at the same time, 100 videos with the AI actor.
Yeah.
And chances are, and as evidenced by the data, chances are one of those videos will outperform the original video made by the AI actor or the human. So I think that's the key learning for us is we've looked at AI actors not just as a way to reduce costs or improve efficiency, but also as a way to test more things that you wouldn't have tested otherwise with human creators.
Yeah, and that's a very great point. And it is something I've seen in our fairly limited experience as well, in that I don't think the performance can be attributed to the fact that this person is a human or not, especially at this stage when AI actors are increasingly realistic. You could even argue that a lot of AI actors, a user would know and see and understand that this is an AI actor and they wouldn't mind that this is an AI actor. And I think there could be some ads that are like that. But I think you're absolutely right that what AI does do is just allow you to test a lot more variables. So, whereas in the past you would test one variable, now you're testing 10 or more, the cost of testing just goes down. So it's not so much as human or AI, but it's just what the AI is enabling and unlocking. So what are some of the variables you guys test, and what do you see that makes the biggest difference to performance?
So emotion is one, right? What kind of emotion does the AI actor transmit? What kind of words, keywords specifically per app are performing well? What sort of hair color, what look? Like, I do see a world in which every single mobile app and every single company out there has an AI ambassador, if you will, or an AI mascot that they use.
Yeah.
And today you get the Tony Parkers or the Tiger Woods of this world who get sponsorship of the Serena Williams, who are brand ambassadors for certain companies. Tomorrow I do see AI people being that way. And so I see companies creating their own version of what they think works best or what they test works best. Those are the main variables. And obviously then if you look at the video in general, the typical usual suspects, like what music you put in, what call to action, what hook. We're doing a lot for the TikTok ecosystem, and we see being able to just swap out some words with other words just makes a huge difference. The first 1 to 3 seconds, the hook, is where we see a lot of power just by A/B testing a lot of different things, a lot of different sentences, a lot of different words used. And the looks is certainly very powerful. If you can create an environment. I was talking to a meditation app, and they want to create an environment in which the AI actor is very uniquely placed, and that can be, oh, let's try this AI actor that works great for us, but on the beach in a very relaxing setting, or in a yoga studio, or in a massage room. And so you get to just experiment with a lot of different backgrounds that make a lot of sense for performance.
Yeah, and like you said, just the sheer number of tests you can run becomes very powerful. Speaking of the number of tests you can run, some advertisers might argue, yes, AI can allow them to generate literally hundreds of variations very quickly. That's just not so realistic or practical to be testing those, especially given the Bayesian nature of the testing algorithms, where the top ad gets the most spend, everything else kind of languishes, or the top 3 or 4 or the top 20% get the most spend. Everything else just doesn't get enough conversions. So if you have hundreds, is there a risk that the vast majority just don't get spend or learning? And I would imagine that problem gets exacerbated if you have a high AOV product with a high CPA, because I've worked with products that have a $100 or $150 CPA, and to be testing those in a way that's rigorous to get enough conversions, to get enough learnings, is a real challenge. So how do you think about that How do you suggest and recommend testing high volume creative?
That's a fantastic question. There are two answers to this. The one is the first is the short term and one is long term. The short term is we use a platform like TikTok. You said something really interesting. You said, how do you test accurately in a way that doesn't get one winner takes all kind of format? And TikTok is very good for a winner takes all format, which means you upload 10 videos in an ad set or in an ad group, and one of those will eat up 95. If you only put a budget at the ad group level, only one of those videos will get maybe 90%, 95% of the spend. And people are frustrated with this. And whenever I talk to marketers, they're like, how do I get every other video to spend? And I like to flip the other question, like, why would you want the other videos to spend? If that particular video is working well, then you want to scale it up and you want to produce more. And the way we've been testing, we've produced north of 100,000 videos in the last 12 months. The way that we've produced videos and tested videos is by letting TikTok figure it out. And I don't take it personally. If we produce 50 videos and we put them, we typically try to limit to 15 videos per ad group on TikTok. So if we produce 50 videos, we create 3 or so ad groups, we upload 15 videos per ad groups, and TikTok only picks one winner, great. If that winner is going to be a unicorn ad and is going to outperform the rest, drive growth profitably, great. So then my question becomes, how do I reduce the cost of generating 50? And that's when AI comes in. But for testing, we're actually embracing that and we're letting TikTok figure out. They're great with predicting what's going to work, what's not going to work. And most of our videos, they get $3 of spend and they get cut out. And that's okay because we gave TikTok what it needed to figure out which one is going to work best. So that's sort of our short-term, midterm answer. And then we use, by the way, these learnings from TikTok. Once the TikTok algorithm has spit out a video that works great, then we can reuse it on, usual suspects on Google and AppLovin, on Meta, and so on. You kind of need to tweak a little bit, but again, this is where AI can comes in to help you tweak accordingly. So that's the short-term, midterm answer. And the long-term answer is, I do see a world in which every platform will allow for one-to-one marketing at scale. And we currently think of videos as, oh, I need to find a top performer, but really, I don't want a top performer. I want a video that's very relevant for you. And that video might be very different to the one that's very relevant for me. And so I think eventually the platforms will allow for one-to-one marketing at the scale of billions of users, where every single person sees something different that's relevant to them. And then you no longer think about winner takes all, but you think about how do we make sure the videos are super relevant?
Yeah, that is so interesting. Yeah, and I probably want to think and review so many things that you did say. But just to double click on one of the things you said. So definitely, I think I agree that the winner takes all is a very valuable signal. If the algorithm is giving spends to one single ad, that's a good signal. It just means that ad can scale. That means users can and will resonate with that. A couple of follow-ups on that. Is there a risk of false positives or false negatives in that? I've certainly seen instances where the algorithm gives a ton of spend in the first level of test to one, and spend doesn't always correlate with strong performance in terms of strong CPA, right? And similarly, something that spent $3 and just got cut out, it could actually be a very high performer, which ties into the other aspect of what I said earlier, which is, what if the target CPA is extremely high? Are you still optimizing for $150 CPA with 10 conversions or more? How do you think about these dynamics of the testing mechanics?
It's something we spend a lot of time on, actually. What you described is what happens across the board, where yes, some videos that are only getting a few dollars and getting cut, there are some winners there. The way that we've done, at least to identify those winners, is in this case, we focused initially our efforts on TikTok before going to other platforms. So on TikTok, we let the winner emerge. That winner is then taken out of the ad group and it's being tested on a different ad group, on a different campaign that is more at scale, with more optimized data points and so on. And we give it more budget. I always think of the other way around of, if the video cannot get spent, it doesn't matter how good it is, like you will not be able to scale it, right? So then the first barrier to entry is, how do we make sure that the video can get spent? And that's not up to us, it's up to TikTok or AppLovin or Meta or the other platforms. So once we identify a video that can get scale, great, let's give it some scale. And then you can actually surface. But the main issue we've seen with mobile marketers is that they're not getting good spend, or they're getting spend forced spend. So the performance is really horrible, or they're not able to get good spend. So the first problem to solve is, how do we get the creatives to scale? Once you are at scale, you can collect more data points and you can figure out go, no go on that particular video. If it's a go,
Sure.
great. Continue putting it in a BAU, in a business as usual campaign. If it's not a go, kill it. But the remaining videos that were in the ad group, you continue testing them, you continue producing more, and you give
Sure.
each one a chance to see, okay, if is there one that can
Sure.
still outgrow. So that's sort of how we think of it. And certainly there are false positive and false negatives, which is why we want a multi-layered approach to testing. But the first layer for us is, can you even scale the creative, and do the early signals of the performance make sense from your profitability or CAC goals?
Yeah, 100% makes sense. And for that first level of testing where you have 15 ads, what sort of budgets do you typically have? And how many conversions, if that's what you're looking at, are you waiting for before you make a decision?
This is on a case by case basis. We typically look at, if we look at an app that has a CPI goal, usually they have ROAS goals or some sort of down funnel proxy, a down funnel event. But if we look at a proxy like CPI, a lot of apps are in the $1, $5, between $1 and $10, let's say, and then some are on the higher end. On the e-commerce, obviously, it's much higher, sort of a target at CACs. The first thing we look at, like I said, we use TikTok to surface things, and then we deploy to other platforms. So for TikTok, we look at, is it getting spend? Is it getting a good click-through rate? Because without clicks, there's not going to be no conversions that are profitable, at least on TikTok. And then we're looking at the number of conversions dependent on what the CAC is, and we try to stay within a few times the CAC of total spend. So at least a few times the CAC. So if it's a $5 CPI sort of proxy, we can afford to drive hundreds of installs and evaluate afterwards. If it's a CAC target of, say, $150, $200, some are the $1,000 CAC target, then we try to stay within 2 to 3x that. It's really on a case-by-case basis, and I would say that the lowest number we've looked at is typically 2 to 3 times the CAC for larger CACs.
I think that definitely makes sense, and that mirrors our approach with high CAC products, where sometimes it's just not financially efficient to be testing to 150, 200 or higher CACs. Right.
Yeah.
And would you test separately on Meta, or are you just taking the winners from TikTok and moving it to Meta? Why or why not?
It's a great question. So we don't start out with Meta because we see Meta as not being, aside from everything that's happening right now for the last 30 days, CACs are going insane on Meta and issues with the platform and so on, which I'm sure you're aware of. But aside from what's going on right now, the creative testing methodology for TikTok for us just works best because it's really able to quickly churn out most of the videos and winner takes all. And Meta is not as strong with this. However, once we surface those videos, we put them on Meta. We don't go through the same process. So Meta or Uplovin, Google or Unity, these platforms, they get a refined number of videos. We do the big testing on TikTok. We keep the top 5, 10, obviously depends on the number of videos produced originally. And then those top are deployed to other channels, and we've measured proximity scores. So what is the likelihood of a video performing well on, let's say, Uplovin, if it has performed well on TikTok? And the proximity scores to TikTok, the highest one is Meta and Uplovin. We haven't measured proximity score for Unity, but we will soon. And this tells us that if a video works well on TikTok, there are high chances of it performing well on Uplovin or Meta, but it's not a one-to-one relationship. That's why we need more than one video to be deployed to Meta from TikTok, and we need at least 3 to 5 to find one that will work on Meta. And by the way, the other way around is not true. Like the proximity score is a one-way score. So if a video works great on Meta, obviously it doesn't mean at all that it will work great on TikTok, and chances are it will not. So it's that's why we measure the proximity score from TikTok to other channels.
And if I might ask, the auction mechanics are very similar on Meta and TikTok. There's a very similar Bayesian spend allocation mechanism. There's a very similar winner-take-all dynamic. So in what way, other than the fact that TikTok is very optimized for virality, other than that, why would you not test on Meta given the similarity of the auction dynamics?
basically it's how fast you can get to a video that is
Okay.
killed or won. And TikTok is just much faster for us at least. And look, I'd be curious, if you have other instances, I'm
Yeah.
happy to share notes there. What we've seen is TikTok is much faster at churning out. So they go through the same process, but TikTok just
Sure.
instantly kills, and they have
Sure.
a lot of predicting capabilities that are under the hood. They're not surfacing this to the account, but when you upload a video to TikTok, they know if they're going to spend or not before you even spend on it. And
Yeah.
so that's sort of why we use TikTok in the first place, and to
Yeah.
save time on iteration cycles. I'm curious if you use Meta for testing purposes, that's something we want to learn.
We have leaned on Meta just because that's by default, but I think the one reason we've not considered TikTok actively was just because Meta has stronger monetization signals than TikTok, which is to say, for a lot of products, TikTok has very strong cost per install. TikTok is great at driving install. But if you do a side-by-side comparison of Meta versus TikTok, the cost per purchases or the cost per downstream event, trial purchase ROAS, tends to be stronger for Meta.
Yeah.
And that has been the primary reason we've stayed with Meta. But I would also say we haven't tested on TikTok aggressively enough just yet. So that could certainly be something for us to think about and test as well. Yeah. But I'm curious how you would think about it.
I agree with you on, we see it depends on the vertical, but some verticals
Sure.
are really just outperforming on TikTok. But I agree with you that Meta is really strong from a down funnel perspective. And I wonder if you were to do your testing on TikTok, I wonder if you would be able to extract videos that are good to then test on Meta for the down funnel optimization.
Right.
And
Right.
and I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's something to be done using TikTok specifically for creative testing, regardless of the
Yeah.
down funnel optimization.
Interesting that you mentioned that because one of the accounts I'm working with does do that. And that's just because they have TikTok Creative Challenge and they're like, we have like these tons of videos and we are forced to test this. Therefore, let's just test these on TikTok and move the winners to Facebook. But that's been enforced by the constraints of the TikTok Creative Challenge. But from everything you're talking about, I think it absolutely makes sense to run the test on TikTok in the way that you're describing. And you're right. And this is something we're going to test out now. Since we're talking about it now, it could be worth running a test for an up funnel event on TikTok, even to surface what the algorithm likes. And that could be just even installs and run just the winners on Meta. Use that TikTok algorithm to surface winners, if you will. Right? And I think that could be a good approach. That could be an interesting approach.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. And, there's just a lot we could nerd out about this. And I'm glad, and this is certainly one of the questions I wanted to ask you because we do certainly spend a lot of time thinking about the testing mechanics and dynamics and about the best ways to be testing. And, I have something that I want to take away and test right now with the testing on TikTok, right? Especially with AI-based creators, AI-based variants. Certainly that's an opportunity. And what, but you said you did mention you've tested over 100,000 ads. What have been the most surprising or unexpected lessons and discoveries in your test so far?
What have been the most surprising learnings from our testing 100,000 videos? I would say that it's the insanity at which one word or one small change can make in terms of what is the output at the end. And so the impact of changing one word on the video performance, this to me is something completely unbelievable.
Yeah.
The benefit of using AI actors is that it's very easy to then tweak. In the past, what we had to do was we had to call the content creator back or the actor back, and we had to ask them to re-record, but they have to it's the same makeup. You need to make sure they're wearing the same clothes. Otherwise, it's not a true A/B testing capability.
Yeah.
But here you get the exact same video and you change one word, or you change the first sentence, or you change something very, very small. And it's the power of those small changes, which I'm not pretending like this one word is make or break for the marketing strategy of the company, but for the algorithms on the platforms like TikTok and Meta and so on, that one word can trigger something a little bit more different on the user side, on the consumer side. If the user is triggered, maybe they leave a comment, maybe they download, maybe they just it's not even that they will download because of the word, it's that they pay more attention to that specific video. They give you a slightly longer opportunity to close them. So if a user is watching a video for 3 seconds, you don't have any opportunity to close them. If you get them to watch until 7 seconds, okay, you're having a conversation. And so this is probably the one aspect we did not foresee, is the impact of those small changes, and therefore the importance to run those unique combinations at a large scale. And that's been mind-blowing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's only because you're running so many tests that you're able to surface these opportunities.
I didn't throw in a data point there, but I'm happy to throw in an experiment we run across many different verticals at scale. There was a 10x delta, or 9 point something, whatever, 10x delta between one video and its immediate iteration. And immediate iteration is you change only one item. And this one item in this case was the first few words pronounced. There's a 10x difference, or we've measured a 10x difference on the cost per install. We didn't go as far as ROAS and so on, because those are private information that we can't necessarily use as much. For CPIs, 10x difference by changing the first 3 words of the video. And that's what I mean by mind-blowing, right? 10x is like you get a CPI of $15 or $1.5. That's completely blowing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And my follow-up to that was, how do you keep track of these experiments? And how do you decide what variables do you test? How do you keep track of these experiments? Because I would imagine a lot of the variables you're testing may not be that meaningful or significant.
Yeah.
How are you tracking these things?
That's how we've built the platform. So Poolday.ai is exactly that. It's generating videos using AI actors, but then also centralizing this experiments data. And the way to think about centralizing experiments data is depending on how large of a company you are. If you're a very large company, you have a huge amount of data set, this looks more sophisticated. If you're on the smaller side, it's not reasonable to expect a marketer at a smaller company to drive 1,000 experiments using very sophisticated variables, because the reality is your data is not going to follow, and the volume of data required is not going to follow. And so what we've done is, for the simpler experience, we have certain variables that we've just measured as a higher coefficient, a higher weight, higher importance in the video. And those we surface and we say, basically, here are the 100 videos you've produced, or here are the 10 videos you've produced. And among those videos, here are the different variables that have been changed, and this is the outcome. AKA, here are the variables that work well for you. So like this AI actor works well for you, this music, this X, Y, and Z. And for the sophisticated ones, we can essentially use computer vision to extract information from the videos to say, well, here are the patterns that are extracted, and we can go through a lot more variables. So for the simpler experience, there are typically 4 to 5 variables that we see as being the most weighted variables. Those are, the hook, the actor, the thumbnail. So the thumbnail, people ask me, like, what the hell is a thumbnail on TikTok? The thumbnail is the very first frame that a user sees. So it's the very first image that the user sees. So that thumbnail, you can keep the same video, but change the thumbnail, meaning the very first frame. And typically it means, like, for example, the background, right? It's the very first frame that you see, and that you can iterate a lot on. So the actor, the hook, the base story, obviously, the background or a thumbnail, and then the metadata, like captions and the editing style. Those are probably, if I were to dumb it down or like simplify, those were the main variables that matter in a video. And then there are a lot more: the pace, the emotion, that like you can go very sophisticated.
Right. And when you talk about the background and ambiance, would it be accurate to say one of the few things that AI can't do yet is having somewhat customized background, which could be actors cooking in the kitchen and showing a brand of cookware? Would that be among the things that AI can't do yet, or am I mistaken in that?
It can. It's more sophisticated, but it can.
Tell me more.
There are exciting ways. Like, we have clients at the who want AI actors at the gym lifting weights, or like very realistic scenes. So there are ways to go around it, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is whenever you have a complex problem, like break it down into smaller problems and then see what you need AI for, see what you don't need AI for, and you can sort of work around that. But the power of A/B testing using very realistic scenes, like in a kitchen or in a gym or whatever, is it's not a theoretical maybe down the line. It's live already, and
Yeah.
it's the technology is already here and available.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. It reminds me of this quote: the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I think about that a lot. The other quote I think about that a lot is any new technology, any radically new technology is indistinguishable from magic. It's certainly something I've been thinking a lot about. So this is
I love this
perhaps a
quote.
good place for us to wrap, Alexei, and thank you for opening up just a little bit of the magic that we're all living in the midst of, that I certainly continue to be very, very fascinated by. And certainly all of the work you're doing is certainly something I'm continuing to be fascinated by. This is perhaps a good place for us to wrap. But before we do that, can you tell folks how they can find out more about you and everything you do?
Sure, you can find us at Poolday.ai. Pool day spelled like a day at the pool. And we are a self-serve platform that allows marketers to generate tens or hundreds of videos using AI actors in a matter of minutes, and leveraging this capability for A/B testing at scale to really find winners that help them, increase ROI on UA. We are going to be at MAU in, April 2nd, or on the first week of April, I believe. And
Yeah,
so happy to see, any marketer there. Otherwise, my email is alex@poolday.ai. Anyone can hit me up, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
amazing, amazing. And we'll certainly link to Poolday.ai. And this is perhaps a good place to wrap. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you for the talk. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
For more tips, pointers, and strategies from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition, subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, or check out our blog, rocketship.hq.com/blog.